Hey folks, today we'll talk about trade deficits. Trade deficits. So we know in the United States that the U.S. has experienced trade deficits since 2000, and this is because of a growing U.S. currency. The dollar today is still strong, and it's seen to be as the most common currency used for major transactions. For example, the buying and selling of petroleum oil. So we want to see exactly how does the U.S. currency appreciate relative to other currencies, and what factors would cause a stronger dollar, which would then mean U.S. consumers are buying more goods abroad, hence an increase in imports, and perhaps which could also lead to a decrease in exports. So to visualize that, we have to have two currency markets, one which represents the United States and the other which represents another country. Here we can use this side to graph the United States, where we will have the quantity of money on the x-axis and the currency exchange on the y-axis. Let's go ahead and put here, let's use the yen, the Japanese yen. So we know that in Japan, the current exchange rate is about 100 yen to $1. So now we can put on the y-axis 100 yen is equal to $1. And this gives us our equilibrium point, like so. Well, we can call this point A. So at point A, we now know exactly which groups are going to put together this currency exchange market. We have the supply curve as such. And in the U.S., Americans supply the dollars. So Americans will be labeled on the supply curve. And the demand curve in this market would be the Japanese tourist, business people coming to the United States. Because the Japanese, they demand U.S. dollars. So now we can see what's going to happen. Let's take, for example, tourism. It's quite common to have tourism as one of the many industries in the United States. But let's see what happens when we see an increase in Japanese tourists to the United States. Perhaps because of California, we have the Golden Gate Bridge, we have Disneyland, a lot of attractions for tourists. So let's say tourism increases in the United States. How will this impact the currency exchange market? Well, we know that if you are a tourist going to any country, in this case, the United States, the U.S. is only going to accept U.S. dollars. If you go to Disneyland, you are expected to pay either with credit card or in U.S. dollars to buy your lemonade, to buy your turkey leg, to buy whatever you want to buy, a churro at Disneyland. So this is going to mean that the Japanese are going to demand a lot more dollars. So they are going to exchange their currency, and now they will demand U.S. dollars. As the Japanese demand U.S. dollars, here we have Japanese. Now we see a brand new demand curve D1 that shifts to the right. And now we can see at this point, point B, we now have a larger number than 100. So before the tourism example, the current exchange rate was 1 US dollar to 100 Japanese yen. Now, 1 US dollar can get you 102, 103, 104 more than 100 Japanese yen. So what is happening here is the yen is actually depreciating in value. Because before it was 100 yen to $1, now it's 102 yen to $1. So the yen is depreciating. If the yen is depreciating, that would mean that the US dollar would have to be appreciating. So the US dollar is getting stronger because now $1 can get you 102 yen as opposed to just 100 yen before. So I want you to focus on the dollar increasing in value. If we were to put this back into our expenditure model of GDP, where we're going to focus on the very last component of net exports, we now know that net exports is also a function of exports minus imports. Exports X minus imports M. When there is a stronger dollar, what's going to happen to U.S. exports? It's going to decrease. Why? Because now U.S. goods are too expensive for other countries to buy. A stronger dollar prevents U.S. goods from being bought because U.S. dollar getting stronger, countries now need more of their currency to be able to buy U.S. goods. But if the U.S. dollar is increasing in value, what does that mean for U.S. consumers? Well, U.S. consumers now have a larger level of what we call purchasing power, that now we are able to buy more goods abroad. That would be imports. We can now buy more goods from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Hong Kong, all because of a stronger U.S. dollar. So when you have a larger M and a smaller X, this negative value is going to remain as a dominant sign in front of negative X and X. So now we can see that we have, in this case, a negative net exports, which would also, in this case, hurt the GDP, because having a negative net exports is going to decrease our GDP. More importantly, because of this stronger US dollar, this is going to lead to more U.S. consumers consuming more goods abroad. Hence, our trade deficit has increased. Because by definition, a trade deficit is when we buy more abroad than what we sell abroad.